Good morning, everyone. My name is Roderick Peoples with the Gulf Coast Workforce Board. I'm the principal industry liaison for the Gulf Coast Workforce Board. And today I have a very, very special guest with us, Mr. Connor O'Sullivan, who's the executive director of Lone Star College's education department. So I just want to bring him in and definitely speak to his expertise in the field that he's working with adult education. And so I'm excited to see what he brings to the table. So Mr. O'Sullivan, tell us a little bit about yourself and what do you do for Lone Star College?
Well, thanks, Roderick. So I'm Connor O'Sullivan. As you mentioned, I'm the executive director for adult education for the Lone Star College system. And here at Lone Star, I often kind of get to say I have the best job here because we get to build the first rung on the ladder for those students that are trying to make their way into a community college and trying to make their way into higher education, jobs, or better employment. A lot of what we focus on is on workforce pathways for students that maybe haven't earned a high school degree yet. They need foundational English skills, or they need more math and English support so they can enter into a high demand high growth workforce pathway. So we have, for example, 17 different pathways that we teach students in. When it comes to that, everything from, probably our most popular is a bookkeeping certification, but we have law enforcement students working on their basic peace officer certification. We have truck driving students working to earn their CSL, CDL, and then we have a lot of different healthcare, entry-level healthcare roles such as medical assisting, EKG monitor technology. There's a lot of different things that we do that students want to go into, but they might struggle with what we might call some of the basic education pieces, which is say like math for welders or, reading in terms of complicated medical terminology. So we offer kind of a whole range of courses that help students get their foot on the ladder so they can start working their way towards the goals that they have that they bring to us.
Well, I tell you, it sounds like you guys are doing some really great work at Lone Star, and we're just so proud to have you part of our consortium here at the Gulf Coast Workforce Board. So, looking at, the Gulf Coast initially, the landscape is so large, right? It's very vast. So what areas of your expertise, your field that you utilize in those pathways? What area of the Gulf Coast?
So Lone Star College has 23 locations throughout the North Houston area. So if you looked at Houston like a clock, Lone Star is going to run from about 9 o'clock in Cy-Fair all the way to about, I'd say about 2 o'clock, maybe 2:30 out in Kingwood and Summerview. So we have locations, smaller centers, workforce centers of excellence. We have a lot of stuff out there. And we have students that are taking classes, especially in those workforce centers all over the place. East Alding is one really popular one where we have a lot of students there taking advantage of these programs. Our staff for AEL is mostly located in Montgomery County at our location just north of the Woodlands. We call Lone Star Montgomery. And then we have a large staff at Lone Star College Greenspoint, which is about the center of our system. And we have a lot of support we offer there. But we also have clients that we're hoping to help. Our current grant contract has us helping Austin and Colorado County. So we're looking for more opportunities to possibly partner with employers or other students out there to provide services to all 4 counties we're charged with.
Oh wow! So you guys have a pretty large area where you service, and I think your name is synonymous with, education pathways, especially here in the Gulf Coast region. I think every time I look at the map, it's something new that's popping up from Lone Star College, and I know the great work you guys are doing and are using those strategies for alignment in reference to those career pathways. So kudos to you guys, Mr. O'Sullivan. But one of the things we want to talk about today is definitely teaching students some basic AI tools to enhance their job performance, communication, or productivity. So what are some examples that you can think of in reference to AI tools that your students or people are already using in the workplace?
So I think it's pretty interesting. One thing that students at Lone Star College have access to is we do have a virtual reading tool. So some people might have heard of some popular platforms like this that help you with reviewing essays, reviewing write-ups. Some people I know use Grammarly for work to help them, make sure their emails are crafted well, or they have, kind of bottom line upfront writing. And so Lone Star College provides students with virtual tools like that, just part of when they come to school. It's something they can log into. They can use it in our what we call our learning management system, our LMS, which
Okay.
is called Desire to Learn. So that's integrated in there. They can put, things that they're working on into these tools that helps them. And it's access to them for free, just as a part of being a student at Lone Star College. We also have a lot more. Lone Star College is pretty neat. We have a whole innovation unit that our chancellor stood up, and one of the members of that unit is a guy named Tim Mosel, who I just saw was talking at the White House Council. I think it was the Department of Education had a
Oh,
panel
wow.
there, and he was snapping photos in the White House, and I saw the Secretary of Education over there and other people, and he was speaking to them about that stuff. Like, there's innovation going on right here at Lone Star College. I've
Wow.
gotten to meet and introduce Tim at a recent conference that we had for administrators of continuing education, and the guy just gets my mind going with all the ways that students can be making use of these tools, staff can be making use of these tools. I mean, I started trying to just use it more, sitting down there with the team saying, how can we learn if we're doing a good job or not from our students? We were redesigning our surveys, making sure, and I just
Mm.
said, hey, what if we, almost use ChatGPT to crowdsource some good survey questions to ask the students, asking about, hey, what are statistically relevant? What are things that our peers are doing across, the country? Hey,
Mhm.
source me 20 solid questions that'll get to the core of what is important to students. And then we can look at it and be like, I like that. I don't like that. I need this. I don't need this, and really craft it. But it gets you, kind of jumpstarts your thinking instead of just coming up cold turkey with stuff, and really gets you going
Mhm.
in terms of what could be valuable to our students and how can we bring more value to them. And, maybe self-analyze what are we doing and what can we do better. And they're useful tools for that, to maybe have other people out there that have thought of something good, and you can kind of start yourself at the 90% mark and then really hone down that last 10% with your own team or your own, work product, or
Mhm.
talking to your own students about what could be something they really care about.
Well, I tell you what, it definitely makes a difference, especially, when you're throwing out ideas, to see what may possibly stick, when you're sitting in a meeting or you're developing ideas around certain topics that you want to utilize to engage the students. So I really like
Yeah.
the way that you're utilizing those tools at Lone Star College. One of the things I think about in reference to some of the things we utilize here at the Gulf Coast Workforce Board is Copilot, and looking at that and examining that and make sure it's alignment to what we
Mhm.
utilize here. Another thing I'm just thinking about in terms of workforce development and AI and your students, right? What is the difference between using AI for a task or letting AI do the whole task for you? Why
I
does
mean,
that matter?
that is a challenge right now at the college. I won't sugarcoat it. Our chancellor talks every month to the system and what he calls the what's the word on the street presentations, right? Or seminars. And, he talks a
Mm-hmm.
lot about how this is one of the more challenging things that he's just faced, because you have both, we want to introduce students that are hitting, the ground running when they get out into the working world. We want them to be an advantage. But that temptation is obviously there to use AI to maybe do all of the assignment instead of maybe honing the assignment. That's something that actually,
Mm-hmm.
Professor Mosel was talking about the other day, is he started designing his own classes to integrate AI fully with them. Hey, show me the prompt you
Mm-hmm.
use, show me how you develop this to be better. There's some tools out there that they're actually using for virtual interviewing skills. I can't remember the exact software it was, but it has
Mm-hmm.
it play the other side of an interviewer. And
Oh,
so
wow.
giving, ideas of how we can get students that experience of interviewing. It gives you
Good
notes on how
deal.
your interview gets. So these are things that, the Lone Star Innovation Unit is thinking about and introducing and presenting to staff. And they really are trying to, one of the things they're trying to develop at Lone Star right now is a staff training program. So,
Okay.
the innovation lab there is trying to think about how do we go out and do a roadshow of the campuses and train our staff to be operating in both from the workforce productivity side internally to Lone Star,
Mm-hmm.
and the student design side, so that they're getting, good tools where it's not just something where, maybe some students might be tempted to use this to do the whole assignment versus designing an assignment that integrates it fully. Another big part about that, I would say, is um, the AI detection tools are a thing. And really,
Mm-hmm.
something that I think our chancellor mentioned was, imagine what it's like to be, as much as we want to make sure that people that are doing the work are the ones being recognized. But imagine what it would be like. Some of these AI detection tools aren't there yet. The college went through trying to search for one of these things, and they're not always incredible. They're not always like, imagine a single false positive in the injustice to a student in that case versus, catching other students. I think there's something I read in American history, better for, what is it, 9 guilty men to go free than 1 innocent man to be convicted or something. Like, you got to realize like some of that is playing around in some of this AI discussion too, that we have to be very, very careful about these instances where we're, trying to find a way to, enforce academic integrity, because that is a big, big deal for our professors, for our students, and for especially the students that are, going out there and doing the work, maybe knowing that their peers might not be. And that is something that is being really looked closely at the highest levels of the college.
And I think it's important to definitely take a look at those tangibles. I can remember finishing up my master's program, and I remember turning in those assignments to turn it in. And so when you would turn it in, it would kind of prompt a certain percentage, right, of your particular project or work that you needed to submit for that particular skill. You would submit it in, and it would give you a percentage back after a few minutes to see where you were getting your information from. Is it already out there, in the world, already been presented somewhere? And so I think that was a great tool that they utilize. And I can think here at the board, as far as, organization wise, right? Some of us, I'm not going to say everybody, but some of us utilize Read AI, especially when we're in a meeting for recording purposes, because not only it helps you capture that information during a particular meeting. So if you're engaging with certain individuals, some of that information is captured for you, and not only captured for you, it also captures those outputs or those tangibles that you need to situationalize and identify that you need to get those back to that particular individual. So I think strategizing and using alignment in reference to AI is very important. So, but you want to make sure it's authentic, though.
Absolutely.
Yes, indeed. So another question I had: what are some of the risks, Mr. O'Connor, of relying on too much AI for writing or for communication purposes? What are your thoughts around that?
I mean, personally, I've tried using things like these AI tools. I'll, write something and I'll put it in there and I'll correct it. And, I go through there and I like, change. I read it. It looks like nothing like how I speak, like how I write. It sort of saps all of your own personal voice out of that, which I think is kind of a key to effective communication. I mean, one of the, some of the leadership training I've been through, we talk a lot about decisions, communication, and action. And if you can make the best decision in the world, but if you can't communicate it effectively, the action that follows will not be there. So I think it runs the risk of just, almost trying to turning something which is your own personal communication into sort of a, I don't know, milk toast, just the same thing over and over. People see it. You read, you kind of, the more this stuff's out there, the more you kind of read, like, hey, AI wrote this. I know you didn't write this. AI wrote this. So there's that risk, but it's also just, taking out what might be important meaning or the way you emphasize things or the way you do that. I mean, it just, and then over time, I just think, AI is a tool that needs a learning base. I read a good book called The Age of AI about this, about a year ago, trying to learn a little bit about it, and it needs a training environment to learn in. And as the training environment was based entirely upon unique creations of the human mind. And as time goes on, as AI starts learning off AI, as product becomes more product, it seems like we can go from this giant world of training and learning and human creation down to just kind of everything is just, a self-induced feedback loop where the AI is going into the AI. And now like what, I think people that can live without it are going to excel because they can be in there. And eventually you are going to be in spots like this, like here we are talking. I don't have, ChatGPT run on the side giving me feedback prompts. That you need to be able to speak and think and respond to people in a live environment. If our students aren't able to do that, they're not going to do great in, I would say what's going to happen in 95% of their school, work, and life environments.
Yeah, and you know what, Mr. Connor, I'm thinking about in reference to soft skills too.
Yeah,
because soft skills is something that it's hard to teach. It's almost got to be innate. It has to be within you from the start. You can have several prompts in reference to where you want to start things, but to have that give and take conversation to provide substance during a particular conversation, and takeaways is very important. And I also like to utilize this strategy that, my grandma always taught me, right? I take this with me wherever I go. You have two ears, you got one mouth. So you definitely want to listen twice as hard as you're talking. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, and I think, and I learned that in the early 80s. So, and it's
Yeah.
sticking with me now. So AI wasn't around then, I can tell you, but definitely having those conversations with elder statesmen and people you looked up to, they provided some great insight for you going forward. But soft skills are very important.
Absolutely.
All right. So another thing I was thinking about as far as communication, right? So when you're thinking about communicating with AI, what does that look like? Um, what and also you got to utilize prompts to get certain feedback, right?
Yes.
So if you have those prompts, you have to put them in the system to get that feedback. So what are some of the key skills or advantages for job interviewing that could help? Like you stated before, you utilize those skills to do live interviews, right? To give to
Yes.
those students. How do you guys utilize in that space?
So that's kind of another interesting, like I said, I'm going to keep leaning on Professor Mosel here. So Tim Mosel, awesome guy. I'm really happy I got a chance to meet him and hear him speak. The prompting is the important part in this. Like the prompt you give these things can completely change what the output's actually going to be. His some of his recommendation was, for example, ask for it to, I don't know if you want to call it pretend or simulate, but the thing I've been using a lot since listening to that, which has resulted in better prompts, is as a what name your expert with 20 years experience. His thing was award-winning expert. So if you're looking for as a chief HR officer with 20 years experience in interviewing,
Mm,
ask me questions that would be for a role in applying for a police department, say for one of our law enforcement academy grads, and what might
okay.
get brought up. Be prepared to give me feedback on my answer, both the quality, the content, and the way that you heard me say it. Because you can use these
Mm,
voice to speech tools. I think he used Google AI for that when he was showing us the demo
okay.
there. But this is some really neat stuff. But just getting not just to give you the flat answer, but the other one he used was award winning. As an award winning, I don't know, take it down to as an award winning plumber with 20 years experience. Explain to me why like my pipes are making this noise in the house. I mean, there's a wide range of things that you can apply this to in your daily and professional life. But the
Yes.
prompting is pretty important
Yes.
from
Prompting
what
is
I
definitely.
understand. Again, I'm not the expert. I just went to a presentation one time and have tried it out myself and gotten good results.
All right, man. Well, I
Yeah.
tell you, I think within the next few years, this is something we're gonna all have to be a part of, especially when you're thinking, of job related skills and I think there's a lot of talk going on right now in reference to maybe AI taking jobs away from individuals.
Mhm.
So I think being well versed in it and knowing about certain issues around AI and how to utilize is going to really come to the forefront, especially for our students in the Gulf Coast region. I think having that information and utilizing it strategically for their good is going to be very important. It's going to make an impact. So I look forward to see what that looks like within the next, 3 to 4 years in reference to those jobs that are coming. We just, I think Eli Lilly just announced that they're moving to the Houston area, right? It's a big medical facility. I'm sure they're going to utilize some of those different things as well in that process, but they're known for medication,
Right.
pharmacy things. So it's going to be interesting to see how those things play out in the Gulf Coast region. So, Mr. O'Sullivan, we're going to wrap it up. And I just want to ask you one key takeaway or one nugget that you can give to your students in the Gulf Coast region in reference to AI. What information would you give them to help them in this endeavor?
I would say, again, looking at the typical adult education student, it's somebody that uh, hasn't completed high school, and then or hasn't fully mastered the English language, or is struggling with the very basics of math and English as they try to enter a workforce pathway.
Okay.
I would say to them, you know, be brilliant in the basics. Okay. I used to have in my, previous career, I got a thing up here from my time in the military, but we used to talk about 90% of what you do every day when you're training, when you're developing, when you're working with young men and women is working on being just absolutely great at the basic things that happens. Something I used to say to a lot of people is I could be the Nick Saban of the working world. I could write up the perfect play. I could have the most incredible scheme you've ever seen. And if no one can catch a football, none of it matters. Okay.
Right, right.
Like great. He was wide open all by himself in the end zone and he dropped it.
He
Right. And
dropped the
none of it
ball.
matters if you don't have the basic skills, the adult basic education that you have. And just realize these resources are all around you. So they are like
Mm,
Lone Star College, like I said, 23 locations in North Houston. We are your neighbor. If we're not your neighbor, then there's other members of our consortium that likely are. It's
mhm.
affordable. There's financial aid pathways out there. Workforce Pell is a thing in the news that even if you're not ready to go to a 2-year program or maybe something that's Pell eligible,
Okay.
hopefully in the next year there's gonna be something that's workforce eligible. Adult education has support for that. And if the barrier you think is out there, if you're worried about AI and you feel like you're a million miles away from that, we just opened up a new program in basic computer skills for our students.
Mm,
There are students out there that even if that are not great with computers yet, that aren't digitally literate yet. And you,
right,
you
right.
think most people working in our, maybe at our level that have graduated college or what have you, they don't realize that there's a huge portion of the population that's just uncomfortable with basic computer tasks. Microsoft Excel might as well be, I don't know, advanced coding to them, right? And we now
Right, right,
have a
right.
Microsoft Excel pathway in adult education, and we take our
Oh,
students
wow.
maybe through, for example, a foundational English student that's on a workforce bridge pathway will start out learning the basics of English. When we get them to an intermediate level, we're going to start introducing basic computer literacy. We're going to start introducing Microsoft Excel and try to actually get them their a Microsoft Excel associate certification, and it's something that is within
Wow.
their reach. And just starting there, and now you're a little bit better with computers. Now you're a little bit better here, and then you can take that next step, whether it's in entering into post-secondary education, whether it's at work and you've shown a little bit more aptitude, but just being, those basic skills of math, English, English spoken and written ability, if it's not your first
Mm,
language, like these things are the first big step for students. And then you build on that and you build on like the adult education journey
right.
isn't necessarily a brief one, but we're here for it for the long haul for them. Okay. So we have
Yes.
students that have been with us all the way from learning English and then earning their GED. We even have a GED in Spanish class that we have to get them, and then entering
Mhm.
into basic computer skills, entering into workforce pathways, and then they go to college. I mean, and then they stay at Lone Star and they get their associate's degree and they transfer to university and they get their 4-year degree. So
Wow.
there are some really incredible students out there that just, if you feel like it's a long way away, like you'll get there to the AI step, but don't neglect those basics that you need to be brilliant in. And that's really what adult education is here to provide.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. O'Sullivan, thank you so much for your time. I really think, a pound of prevention is worth a pound of cure. An ounce of
Yeah.
prevention is worth a pound of cure. And I like the way that you're utilizing that foundation, setting that solid foundation. If you have a solid foundation, you can build and stack those different career tangibles and make it whole. So I definitely appreciate the work that you guys are doing at Lone Star College, and definitely I think we're going to be partners in this arena for a long time to come. So
Absolutely.
yes, sir. So we're looking forward to those new tangibles that are coming out from AI. We're also looking for some new opportunities around workforce development and also technology and career pathways. So we just want to take our hat off to you, Mr. O'Sullivan. Thank you for your time, sir. We appreciate your service for the armed forces. And hey,
Oh,
man, we
thanks.
thank you for being a leader in this particular endeavor.
Thank you,
So,
Roderick. I appreciate it.
hey, thank you. My hat's off to you, sir. Have a
Appreciate it.
wonderful day, and we will connect soon, sir.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you.
Higher Gulf Coast Youth, HGCY, is a dynamic initiative dedicated to igniting passion, expanding opportunity, and guiding youth ages 14 to 24 toward meaningful, sustainable careers. Through engaging career exploration activities and hands-on work-based experiences, HGCY connects young people with industries that show strong regional growth and offer pathways to high-skill, high-demand jobs. Recognizing that career decisions can feel overwhelming, Higher Gulf Coast Youth provides practical tools such as career exploration tools, job search tips, and resume assistance to make the process more accessible and effective. These resources are designed to help youth identify industries and occupations that align with their strengths, interests, and long-term goals. As part of our ongoing commitment to empowering young people, we also share key insights on in-demand occupations and priority industries across the Gulf Coast region. Whether you're just beginning to explore your options or ready to launch your career journey, Higher Gulf Coast Youth is here to help you make informed choices and confidently move toward your future.